Welcome to the Arnold Clark Car Show, where this episode we're in the glorious surroundings of Inveraray in the west coast of Scotland. As well as stunning scenery, Argyll and Bute has one of the highest uptakes of low-emission and electric vehicles anywhere in the country. And so where better to be as the Arnold Clark Car Show goes electric. Here's what's coming up on the show. With ever-increasing range, decreasing price and charge times, and a wider appreciation of the environmental benefits, not to mention running costs, more and more of us are beginning to take electric cars seriously, and with good reason. But which ones offer best value for money? Today on the Arnold Clark Car Show, we take a look at three of the most attractive options: the enduring practicality and affordability of the Renault ZOE, the futuristic and immensely drivable BMW i3, and the all-round familiarity and handling of the Volkswagen e-Golf. So all that to come. But first, when it comes to electric cars, there's only really one place to start. When Renault first launched the ZOE back in 2013, it marked a revolution in the new electric car market and signalled that plug-in, all-electric cars were no longer just a gimmick. They were now a genuine, eco-friendly and cost-efficient driving alternative. Well, since then, the ZOE has gone on to become the top-selling electric car in Europe. But with ever-increasing competition, is it still up there at the top of the electric tree? When Renault first entered the blossoming electric market, they did so with three offerings. The Twizy, essentially an early concept, limited range, glorified quadricycle aimed at the environmentally conscious urban hipster. Then came the Renault Kangoo ZE, aimed at companies looking to reduce their carbon footprint. But it was with this, the launch of the ZOE, that Renault really set out the blueprint, a genuinely practical five-door family hatchback, with the big draw of drastically reduced running costs. It's a car with urban life at the very centre of its design philosophy. And whilst many still see the ZOE as a small second family car, perfect for nipping around the city, it's becoming an ever more genuine one-car option, capable of longer distances on a single charge than ever before. Which brings us to the two main concerns for anyone considering purchasing an electric car: high cost and range anxiety.
The ZOE price starts from £18,420. That includes the government grant of £3,500, the plug-in grant. If you go for the full purchase, it's an additional £6,600 for that one.
So that's something quite unusual, isn't it, to Renault? Renting or buying the battery. Explain the cost implications of that.
So if you lease the battery, there's the price range on it. It starts up to 4,500 miles. It's £59 a month. Then it'll go up in increments of £10 for every 1,500 miles, up to just over 12,000 miles, where you can then get unlimited mileage for £110 a month.
And in terms of range, how far can you get on one charge?
Well, WLTP figures is up to 250 miles, but the realistic range that you get is up to 186 miles in the summertime and up to 120 in the wintertime. You can get a charging point fitted at home, which will either be a 3 or a 7 kilowatt charger, which will take about 8 to 9 hours to charge, so you can do that overnight. The public chargers that are out there, you get 22 kilowatts and you also get 43 kilowatts. The 22 kilowatt will take about 2 hours 40 minutes from to do a full charge from empty, and the 43 kilowatt will take about an hour and 40.
So whilst you're out shopping, it can be fully charged. Once you factor in the government plug-in car grant of £3,500, and if you go with the most popular choice of leasing the battery, then the ZOE comes in comfortably under £20,000, considerably cheaper than almost any other electric option on the market, and you get plenty for the money. A 7-inch colour touchscreen, keyless entry and start, rear parking sensors as standard, and if you go for the top-of-the-range signature trim, or for an extra £250, a reversing camera too. It also comes with a handy preheating system that will defrost and warm up the car while it's charging, a nice touch for those long, cold winter months. Well, we're on the road now, and the most notable difference in an electric car is the noise, or should I say the lack of noise when you're driving. It's so quiet.
It's very, very quiet. You actually hear a lot more of the outdoor noise, but it's also nice, quiet in the cabin as well.
Yes, it feels like a very serene driving experience. Now, tell us about the braking system.
Well, the braking system, if you see on your dash there as well, it's going through its green because you're actually using your accelerator. But if you then start to brake, it then goes blue, and it's basically self-generating back into the car, which is good because it basically gets you to get more miles back into the car to be able to use. It's a very, very quick off the mark because obviously it's very, very smooth as well because it doesn't have any of your gear changes. So they're always very, very quick off the mark, and people don't realise that sometimes.
What about motorway driving?
Motorway driving is actually, you use a lot more of your battery power with that because the car will go further because you're self-generating. So obviously with your braking, but in the motorway it'll do happily. It's very, very smooth and very, very fast. But you can also use the eco button, which will then it'll only give you a maximum 60 miles an hour, but obviously it's going to help you with the amount of battery power that you've got left in the car as well.
It feels like a very civilised driving experience because everything is so quiet. Oh yes, don't step off the pavement. We are coming.
So we've been generating backwards and forwards, using some and taking some, and the miles hasn't even moved.
I'm liking this. Now, there's often a concern with any electric car that the battery limits the cabin space, but that doesn't really feel like the case with the Zoe.
No, the Zoe's got loads of space, and quite a lot of people are very surprised when they get in the car and how much space it has. The seats in the back are very high up because the battery's underneath the floor, and the back of it, that's the reason why you're a wee bit higher up. But no, the space is really, really
and there's great and there's a great central console space as well.
Yes, loads of space about here. You've got some cup holders as well, which are always handy.
Of course, the Zoe does have some drawbacks. The braking can feel a little juddery as the car harvests that kinetic energy to charge the battery, and adult rear passengers won't be blessed with acres of space. But the Zoe does have a surprisingly generous 338 litres of boot space, a good 80 litres more than the BMW i3, for example, and thanks to a large front windscreen, thin pillars and a raised driving position, visibility is a real plus. All in all, the Renault ZOE is one of the most refined, fun-to-drive, practical and cheap cars in its class. Its overall package provides one of the most attractive ownership propositions of any electric car. And with the 2020 version set to launch next year with a 20% extended range of 240 miles, the humble Zoe looks like it's only going to go from strength to strength. Earlier in the show, we reviewed the Renault ZOE, arguably the most affordable and practical electric car on the market, if perhaps not the most exciting. And later we'll be taking a closer look at Volkswagen's e-Golf, deliberately and consciously based on the hugely popular and established Golf platform, almost an electric car in disguise. But what if you want an electric car that makes a statement? An electric car with style, an electric car that looks forward-thinking and fashionable whilst delivering efficiency and excitement. Well, if that's what you're looking for, then we've got a treat for you. BMW aren't a manufacturer who tend to do things by half, and their electric hatchback offering, the i3, is no exception. While others consciously seek to make their electric offerings appear a viable option by mirroring their conventional petrol and diesel offerings, the i3 takes a different approach. From the suicide doors to its neon styling, recyclable materials to a genuinely innovative interior design, everything about the i3 makes a statement. So Alastair, you're a passionate advocate of the i3. What is it about this car that sets it apart from the rest?
For me personally, it's the overall package. It's the design, the drivability of the car, the comfort and the overall premium feel as well, from the amount of glass that's in the car and just the way that it drives. I think altogether it's absolutely fantastic.
And you've done a lot of driving in these cars, haven't you? You've done a lot of commuting, because I think people might be wary of thinking, how far can I go in an electric car? But you did Edinburgh commute for quite a while.
Yeah, I did, yeah. So that was one of the reasons that I took an i3. I took one for 16 months to be able to fully try it out, and I've done commutes through to Edinburgh, in and around central Glasgow, and I've also driven to my parents' house in North Northumberland as well at 170 miles. So really have tried it in as many possible scenarios as we could, and I must say it came up trumps in all of them.
So what sort of range are we talking about?
So on this battery here that we're driving now, this is the 120 amp hour battery that we have. This has got 160 mile range as tested on the new testing cycle. However, in reality, I see that as close to 200 miles. The car does a very, very good job of recovering a lot of that potentially lost kinetic energy and turning that back into usable electrical energy. So this is the third version of the battery that we've had in the i3, and in fact, because of the range and the confidence in the range that we have now, we've actually withdrawn the range extender from the option. So it is now the pure BEV, the pure electric i3 that we have on offer.
From the outside as well, it looks pretty unique. BMW have gone all out.
Yeah. So they've done that with the two-tone paint combination that's on the car. So you can see on this car, we've got the red and the black combination. And the key thing that they've done as well is they've kept all the BMW design style and cues around the car. So you have got great customization on the car in terms of your exterior finishes, and of course, very importantly for BMW, your wheel options as well. As you can see, we've got a lovely 20-inch wheel on this car, which just sets it off perfectly.
So they've gone all out on the outside, but the inside is really quite special, isn't it?
You've just got a huge amount of space. Now, a lot of that is because we are an electric car. It does seem like a simple thing to say, but we've not got big connecting tunnels down here. The gear lever is up on the steering column as well, as is the handbrake controls as well, just down here. So it gives you a lot of interior space. And you've also got a huge amount of glass inside the car, which lets a lot of light in.
We are spoilt for our views today. We've been through past the Rest and Be Thankful. We're now on the road out of Inveraray, and the vision and the scope that you get from this windscreen is really, really good.
Can't think of a better car for taking in these views, to be honest.
So what about the interior styling? Is this recycled, this bit in front of us?
Yeah, so a huge amount of the components on the vehicle are either recycled or can be recycled. So for example, 95% of the car can be recycled at the end of its life. What you're pointing to at the front there is canaf, which is effectively a weed that we use to produce the composite for the doors. It's 30% lighter than the plastics that we'd use in the conventional series vehicles, as well as coming from a sustainable source there as well. So it's both lighter and a sustainable material to be able to build the vehicle out of.
So what about the infotainment system in here?
So that's probably one of the areas where BMW excels the best. We now have the professional media system, which is what you see here as standard throughout all of the i3. So that will do all of your base entertainment information for you, but so much more. So it'll show you where your charging points are. It'll also show you what sort of chargers are available at the points. And this is the great bit, whether they're active or not, and whether somebody else is using them. So you can make sure that you're going to a charging point that is free and is available, and you are going to be able to get your charge in it.
So if you've not driven an i3 before, the one pedal drive does take a bit of getting used to.
Yeah, it does, yeah. As you said, it's just a wee bit of getting used to. So driving the car along the way that you normally would, and rather than braking, you just take your foot off the accelerator. This causes the motor to load up and act like a dynamo, and you're recovering all of that potentially lost kinetic energy and turning it back into electrical energy. So the car does a really, really good job of saving every single bit of energy that it possibly can and putting that back in as usable energy for you.
And in plain English, as a driver, that means you go a little bit, ooh. Oh, yeah. You feel that pull. With an increased range of around 160 miles aligned with ever more available charge points, both versions are now fully electric, which means no more range extender and a lighter, more responsive drive as a result. And with charging times tumbling, the real-world driving possibilities of the i3 have never been greater.
So we've got two options here. If you've had an EV before, the AC charging is what you're going to be most familiar with. That's still the most widely available. On your 0 to 80% charge, you're approximately 4 hours to get through that. So they're very widely available. This is what's going to really be the breakthrough for the EV market. You can do a 0 to 80% charge in up to 40 minutes.
The i3 presents itself as a premium offering, and that's reflected in the cost. It'll set you back considerably more than the likes of a Renault ZOE, Nissan Leaf, or even Volkswagen's e-Golf. But if you do decide to splash the cash, then you're going to be rewarded with an unmatched charm and zippiness, a brilliantly responsive urban runabout, and an EV ahead of the pack when it comes to the sheer enjoyment of driving. Make no mistake, this car makes a statement in more ways than one. Now, from the futuristic styling of the i3 to something that for most of us will appear altogether more familiar. Since it was first launched in 1974, Volkswagen have sold a whopping 33 million Golfs worldwide, making it one of the most instantly recognisable cars on the roads, and it remains as popular as ever. Now Volkswagen have released their electric version, the e-Golf. Whereas many manufacturers seek to make a philosophical design statement with their electric offerings, Volkswagen have taken a very different approach, hiding its green credentials inside one of the most recognisable chassis around. Chances are you may well have seen an e-Golf on the road and not even realised, and that's very much the point. So Brendan, most of the appeal of the e-Golf stems from the fact that it looks incredibly similar to the petrol and the diesel versions. It is a Golf, but there are quite a few stylistic differences, aren't there?
Yes, the first one we come to is the blue strip that comes all the way through the dash into the LED housing. Then as you come down, you get your C lighting, LED daytime running lights. Also, as you'll notice on the e-Golf, you get your front and rear parking sensors like on a normal Golf, and you also get different alloy wheels.
So what about the boot space on the e-Golf?
So you get 341 litres on the e-Golf. On the conventional Golf you get 381. The reason the difference of 40 litres is you don't get a split level boot. The reason why you don't get a split level boot is because underneath you have got the battery packs in the boot.
Okay.
But you do get a generous sized boot, and it's larger than most of our competitors.
Of course, the major difference is obviously in the powering of the car. The electric battery means the e-Golf goes about its business in almost eerie silence. But if you think you'll be compromising on handling, then you're in for a pleasant surprise. Its steering is well weighted, it's incredibly agile, especially in tight city streets, and it smooths over bumps in the road as well as any mainstream Golf. Where the e-Golf maybe falls short of its rivals is with its relatively modest range of 144 miles. But with a little careful planning for longer journeys, this car really does have a lot to offer. It feels a lovely, spacious car to drive.
You're not compromising in any way in the driver compartment or in the passenger compartment. It's all the exact same as your conventional 7.5 Mark Golf. You've got the exact same space as you would in a petrol or diesel one.
So tell us about the three different modes.
So the three different modes you've got is you've got normal, eco and eco plus. Now the car, when you get to a certain level of battery, so it's just before a quarter left of the battery, the car knows it needs to get to a charging point. So the car automatically puts the car into eco plus mode. So you've got a top speed of 54 miles an hour. And then the sat-nav already pre-programs itself into finding you the closest charging point.
It's a very, very smooth ride. I think it might be one of the smoothest so far that we've tried out. So what about the 3 recuperation levels? These are something entirely separate, aren't they?
Yep. So the recuperation levels are, when you flick it over, you can have level 1. So in level 1 it's actually only recuperating whilst you're braking. And level 2 actually recuperates when you take your foot off the accelerator, but it's ever so slightly. And level 3, when you take your foot off the accelerator, it's fully recuperating.
Yeah, when you take your foot off the accelerator, you can actually feel it sort of pull back, and the dial goes hard into the green then, and so you can see you're charging. If you were driving absolute with everything at max, what's the distance, the favourable distance on a sunny day you could get?
144 you would get.
Right.
So typically, see if you drive it letting regenerative 1, and then you've got it in normal, and you're driving like that, and now we'll get about 130 out of it. like from a full charge. But 144s when we're really going economical at it, and then that's when it gives you the best range.
We're going over some bumps in the road and it handles it really well. What have Golf done?
So Volkswagen have looked at it. They know the weight would have been increased, so they modified the suspension to make it handle with that weight, so it feels the exact same as a normal Golf, and it handles in the country roads. It handles just the exact. It gives you the same thrill, gives you the same smile on your face as what a normal Golf would, and it's just as safe. You don't feel any roll or sway in the car, which you can feel in other models as such. You can feel a wee bit of roll and sway because of the weight of the batteries. And they've also looked at it in getting the batteries like down low in the centre of the car, so it keeps the centre of gravity low in the car.
So what's it like in terms of nippiness around town? Because that's what a lot of people will be doing, is buying them for just nipping into town and back.
So 0 to 30, it is quick,
Right.
very quick. And then from 30 to 60, it is quick. It is still quick. And then that's when you notice it will wean off the power, but it's still accelerating. But it's a different type of acceleration. It's because it's not woof. But you know it's moving.
With a £30,000 price tag, the e-Golf doesn't come cheap, but offset that with the money you'll save on tax, as well as considerably lower running costs, and it provides real value. And when it comes to safety, the e-Golf is one of the best performing cars in its class, with a full 5-star NCAP safety rating and automatic emergency braking as standard. Whether you're a Golf connoisseur or new to the Golf experience, the e-Golf will bring you pleasure and practicality in equal measure. It's a Golf, Jim, but not as we know it. Well, that's all for this episode of the Arnold Clark Car Show. Join us again next time when we'll be casting our eyes over a brand new set of great motoring options. And remember, if you want any more info about any of the cars featured on the show, just contact your local Arnold Clark dealership or go online at arnoldclark.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.